I did my master thesis under the supervision of John Arnold at Deakin University on the foraging success and efficiency of lactating female southern sea lions. So I will go through introduction, quickly through the methods, and then I will display the results and end with discussion and conclusion. So, as we know, environmental changes can have great consequences on ecological assemblages. Marine mammals, like the southern sea lions, have a crucial role in the balance and the functioning of ecosystems. So knowing their habitat use, diets, and foraging ecology is a great way to better understand the consequences of environmental changes on marine mammals and on ecosystems. Marine mammals are predators, which means that they compete for limited resources in restricted areas. So that makes them more likely to display diverse diets and foraging behaviors. This is intraspecific variation, and this also influences the structure and dynamics of populations. Foraging ecology can be assessed by quantifying, for example, prey captures and locating them in space and time. So the aims of this study were to determine prey encounter rates, foraging energy expenditure, and the influencing factors on these two parameters during maternal foraging trips of southern sea lions. So the study was conducted in the Falkland Islands, on Big Shag Island, which you can see on the red dot here, during the months of February and March of 3 consecutive years, 2012, 13, and 14. All the data was collected by Bailey et al. For their paper of 2015. The lactating females were captured and equipped with GPS or PTT tags for location, dive behavior data loggers, and triaxial accelerometers. They were then set free for a few days or trips and recaptured to retrieve the devices and the data. After that, the accelerometer data was input in EcoPro to obtain potential prey captures, so PPC, and Vectoral Dynamic Body Acceleration, VeDBA, which is a measure of energy expenditure. Then all the location, dive behavior, and accelerometer data were merged together and analyzed in RStudio. So now I'll display the results. We obtained data from 17 individuals with a total of 22 trips that you can see on the map here. Each color is a different trip. The blue lines represent the bathymetry lines, so 20 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters, and this is 200 meters. Overall, there were 13,974 dives recorded and 9,346 potential prey captures. With the dive behavior data, we were able to determine 3 foraging strategies, which Bailey et al. Did already determine in their paper before. And I will explain them more in details right now. So the first foraging strategy was called inshore because the trips stayed in coastal areas and were relatively short, and they stayed in shallow waters under the 20-meter bathymetry line. During these trips, there were approximately 521 dives, and 51% of those were pelagic. The rest of them were benthic. According to literature, these trips, during these trips, the individuals could be preying on red octopus, for example. The second foraging strategy, as you can see, the trips were a lot further offshore and all over the Patagonian shelf, and even up to the shelf edge, which is determined by a 200 meters bathymetry line. The depth average was a bit deeper, of course, and they did approximately the same amount of dives per trip. However, only 34% of the dives were pelagic. With these parameters, and with literature, the possible preys they could be feeding on were banded custkill and the flounder. The last foraging strategy was called offshore mixed. These trips were the longest, with almost 4 days in average, and the average depth was medium because there was 62% of pelagic dives in this group of trips. Again, according to literature, the possible prey are the Argentine hake, the Patagonian squid, and the South American longfin squid. So now that we've seen the different foraging strategies, we will compare them in terms of potential prey captures and energy expenditure. So we will start with potential prey captures. Overall, the average potential prey captures per trip was 425. And when we compare between the foraging strategies, we can see that the offshore benthic strategy seems to have a slightly higher number of prey captures. However, when you look at the means that are written in black in each box plot, they are quite similar, and indeed there was no significant difference between any of the strategies on the number of potential prey captures per trip. Then we looked at the potential prey capture rate, which is the number of potential prey captures per dive. The average overall was 0.7. And when we look at the different foraging strategies again, we can see, looking at the means, that the offshore benthic is the highest, and the offshore mixed was the lowest PPC rate. We also can see that the inshore group has a very large variance, but these results are consistent because it has been shown in previous studies that benthic foragers have usually a higher rate than mixed foragers. So now that we've seen the potential prey captures, let's get on to the energy expenditure. So VeDBA is the Vectoral Dynamic Body Acceleration, and was the measure of energy expenditure that we decided to use. The average VeDBA per dive was 0.028, which is also similar to what has been seen in other studies on fur seals, for example. When looking at the differences between foraging strategies, we can see that the offshore mixed group was significantly lower than the inshore group, And however, the offshore benthic foraging strategy was not different from any of the others. However, when we look at the energy expenditure per trip, so considering diving and surface energy, there was no significant difference between the groups, and indeed we can see that the values are quite similar. The only thing that we can see is that the offshore benthic strategy seems to have a smaller variance than the two other groups. So, as a discussion, we have seen the difference in different foraging strategies with different potential prey capture rates, numbers, and energy expenditure. This can be due to age and body size of the animal. Indeed, in pinnipeds, body size influences the diving and swimming abilities of the individuals. So the different individuals with different body size might not be able to forage in the same areas or on the same prey. There is also the foraging preferences. that can be acquired through experience or even through matrilineal transmission. And foraging strategies can also be due to foraging site fidelity. Southern sea lions have been shown to have shown long-term foraging site fidelity, which means they always or almost go feed in the same foraging grounds. So this can benefit any of the strategies because the individuals already know where to find the prey, and so they don't lose any time or energy for looking for prey patches. Foraging strategies themselves, though, have an influence on area and diet, of course, of the individuals, but also parental care, because we were looking at lactating females. So the females foraging inshore, for example, are able to provide milk to their pups and protection also more frequently because their trips are shorter. However, females foraging offshore leave their pups alone in the colony for longer periods of time, which puts them at risk of starvation or even being killed by males. But females foraging offshore have been shown to produce a better quality milk. So there is kind of a trade-off between pup growth and pup survival with these foraging strategies. And so the differences in foraging strategies can also influence individuals on the types of threats and adaptation that they face. For example, the fisheries are the main threat for the southern sea lions because in the Falkland Islands, the fisheries target two species, the Patagonian squid and the South American longfin squid, that are very present in the southern sea lion diet. So indirectly, the fisheries can cause a decline in prey availability, which has been shown in the past to have drastic impacts on populations. Or more directly, the individuals of southern sea lions can get entangled or bycaught or disturbed by the vessels. And also, environmental changes can have an effect on the populations of southern sea lions, but also on prey populations and prey species. So the different foraging strategies will have different responses to the environmental changes and the prey changes and availability.
2 minutes.
Then, as a conclusion, so we have seen 3 different foraging strategies: inshore, offshore benthic, and offshore mixed, which did not display apparent differences in foraging efficiency in terms of potential prey captures and rates. And the only significant difference was that the mixed foragers were showing a lower energy expenditure while diving. However, we cannot conclude on which foraging strategy is the most efficient because we don't have any information on which prey was really captured, the size of the prey, the species, and the energy density. So we cannot have we don't have an accurate idea of energy gain and loss during the whole trips. Also, we only looked at lactating females, which is a small pool of individuals in the population, but a very important one indeed for the future of the populations. But it would be good in future studies to assess the different ages and sizes and sexes to have a global understanding of the foraging ecology of southern sea lions. And thank you for listening. Here are my references.